Well, hello everyone. This is Dr. Hawk here. I promised you guys earlier I had something to make up for some of the lost time and issues I've been having recently, and if you've no doubt seen from the introduction, I present to you the man himself, Chris Roberts.
Hey, everybody. Very nice to be here on Dr. Hawk's show.
And it is more than amazing to have you on my show, Mr. Roberts. So thank you very much for taking the time to sit down and talk to me, and maybe we can just go over a few questions and see where we go from there.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
one of the big things that I've been dying to ask, and me sort of like maybe many others out there, is that you have quite an ambitious dream here. It's a crazy dream. We're in an age of publishers and microtransactions and DLC, etc. Yet what you have here is rooted in a lot of your former works. Are you trying to refine a former Wing Commander dream slash, one of your previous works? Or are you trying to take it, let's say, with, another new idea and take what you've learned from Wing Commander and apply it to Star Citizen?
Uh, I think it's kind of a combination. So part of one of the drivers of what I'm doing with Star Citizen is I didn't feel like I delivered on what I wanted to do with Freelancer. So the original goal of Freelancer, I talked about a long time ago was to, the first stage was a single player aspect, and then I wanted to do a sort of bigger multiplayer aspect that would have, tens, hundreds of thousands of people playing in the same universe. And I never really got to get there because I sold the company to Microsoft and I was sort of burned out on games. And so essentially, a version of the single player game came out with a kind of multiplayer setup, but nothing was as ambitious. It didn't have a dynamic universe the way I wanted. Didn't have sort of player generated events, which were all things that I talked about back in 1999 when I unveiled Freelancer. So there's a combination of that. And also just I wanted to build a more like the world that I'm doing for Star Citizen, I think sort of matches a bit better with the Wing Commander world in terms of being a more kind of, I don't know, it's not necessarily 100% realistic, but it's sort of a more sort of hard, gritty, kind of photorealistic feel or vibe compared to Freelancer, which was much more stylized because at the time the graphics technology wasn't so good. So I was sort of going for more caricature or more cartoony. Whereas now I'm sort of going for something that I sort of feel sort of almost like a I don't know, hyper real style, which is stylized, but it's more on the photoreal end. And sort of, because I want to feel like you're in Star Wars or, another cool sci-fi movie with that sort of kind of cool, gritty feel. So whether it's Battlestar Galactica or Star Wars. So it's a combination of those two things. So there's a bunch of stuff that, I would be doing for the next Wing Commander if I was doing another Wing Commander, and sort of filling out something I wanted to do a long time ago with Freelancer, which was really sort of the continued promise of what Privateer was, and then taking advantage of today's technology, the detail, the fidelity you can have, and then the fact you can be connected with so many players around the world, which is one of the things that's been the nicest surprise from where we've gone so far is just we haven't got a game out yet, and I feel like we've got this great community, and I feel like we're connected, and we're connected to people all over the world, and we're getting opinions and thoughts and enthusiasm and excitement from everywhere, from every corner of the world, and it's actually completely invigorating. Most of the people on the development team, one of their biggest comments is like, I didn't realize it would be quite as fun or as exciting doing something like this with the community in a live fashion. So it's kind of cool.
That's pretty much what has drawn me to this community as well. I tend to lurk a lot on forums, but this is one of the first cases where I was thinking, you know what, there's something here that I think maybe we should jump into. So for me, what I'm kind of hearing is that, instead of just trying to make the same cake better, you're taking what you've learned from it and trying to apply it to SC now. Because there's a
Yeah.
lot better tools and a lot better um, even people and skill sets around you now to work with it.
And I tell you, I think that you always have to learn from everything you've done before. So everything you've done before informs what you do going forward, but you can't just basically regurgitate what you did before. So you take the things you liked before, and then you add in new things that you can see you can do now, or new things you'd like to try. So that's always that's a big thing for me. I don't think I would just want to. It's one of the reasons why I did Star Citizen. I actually had the opportunity to come and do a Wing Commander sort of in the more traditional way, but I sort of felt like I wanted to do something bigger and a little more ambitious, and to to be more relevant to what I saw gaming becoming.
Fair enough. So now that you have the tools to create your vision, or at least at this point of time, a better version of it, something that I've been wondering with that's a person like yourself, how do you avoid feature creep? Sure, like you got design docs and rigid team structure, etc., to keep things going over at the company. But what stops you from just going, hey, we could add a little bit more over here, or it'd be really cool if we did this. And next thing you know, well, what the heck has Star Citizen become now? Because how
Well,
do you, as the helmsman, avoid that?
well, we definitely. I mean, no, there's definitely some level of feature creep because as we're going along, there's we see ideas from the community. We think, okay, that would be kind of cool to add, or we have ideas ourselves. But I think the biggest thing that we're trying to do is by having sort of all these deliverables for like front-facing deliverables, right? So it's not an internal deliverable like we've got a milestone for a publisher. It's like, okay, we're going to give a hangar at the end of August. Okay, we're doing dogfighting at the end of December. Okay, we're going to do a planet-side module, whatever, some point next year, and then we're going to do the alpha of Squadron 42. We're forcing ourselves into some boxes with near-term goals. So yes, there will be some feature creep, but you also have this goal that you have to deliver. So you sort of prioritize what you're going to work on. Because the problem is when you've got a deliverable 2 years out or 3 years out, and you've got a lot of resources, you definitely tend to feature creep and you're not very focused. And then when it comes down to the last 6 months, you're like, oh shit, I got to do all this stuff. So I'm hoping that the production methodology we're using, which is more iterative, so we're actually releasing components of what will be the final game along the way, will force us to sort of basically keep our scope within a containable area, because we're making them kind of concise. Like, okay, the hangar, it's discrete. Okay, we know what we're going to do. We got to display the ships that you people will have pledged. We got to have a hangar that will change in size based on how many ships you have, and will change based on your pledge level. And we've got to let you walk around. So we need animations for that. We need animations you climbing into it, climbing out of it. We need this system where you can put different items on your ships. So bam, that's what we need in that deliverable. So that makes it sort of contained, and that's easier to focus on than like worrying about everything in the whole game. And so that's one of the techniques that we're using in the production that hopefully will save us from feature creeping ourselves to death. But we definitely do add things. We're like, okay, yeah, that'd be cool, but it's always within the constraints of, okay, we need to deliver something in 3 months' time, in 9 months' time, or whatever.
So is that where Agile and Scrum come into place?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Agile. Well, see, the thing is, like, the key to Agile and Scrum is the whole philosophy in complicated development is it's just there's so much stuff going on, there's so many interdependencies that it's pretty much impossible to basically chart this all out at the very beginning. If you do one of those Microsoft projects that's got hundreds of thousands of tasks on, you're never going to track to it, and you'll have spent 3 months building something that will end up like being obsolete within a week. So the whole idea of Agile and Scrum is you've got like a general idea of what the project's going to be, say in our case a game, and then you break it down into smaller segments, and then when you get into that segment, then you really get deep. So you're only ever really drilling down really deep when you're in the sort of the shorter sprints, so to speak.
Right.
But those sprints are always in a limited amount of time, say 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, or 6 weeks. And so because they're in a limited amount of time, they have to be scoped. And so they're basically there's something that you can get your head around. There's something that you can sort of really get your teeth into, and you can it's not sort of this endless engineering project or this endless sort of content creation project. And so the problem with Agile and Scrum stuff is if you don't really have proper deliverables on these things, people kind of use it, but it's not really, because Agile and Scrum is meant to be about iterative development, delivers actual something that works and is functioning, and then you iterate on it, and then you add more features and deliver that function.
Like Lego blocks.
Yeah, and so kind of why we're doing the front-facing milestones is to basically really make us have a proper deliverable, because when you have a proper deliverable, to a community that we've got over 100,000 people, it's like, you can't fake it. It's got to work.
Right.
So, and I definitely notice. I mean, I even see it internally. Like, I've got a bunch of really talented people, but I sort of see them fiddling and trying to play with things and make it better and whatever. And then when we've got a deadline, whether it's like, okay, we've got the jump point issue for this month, or we got to get the Aurora brochure out, or we're going to do a video on the Hangar app, that focuses people. So I've sort of moved the development philosophy into trying to focus on front-facing deliverables because I feel like it actually focuses everyone internally to actually deliver because they know they're going to be showing stuff to a lot of people, and then all of a sudden you want your stuff to look really good. You don't want to be the guy that didn't deliver.
Well, that makes a lot of sense too, because it also gives motivation too. Instead of, like you said, setting a goal 3 years down the line and then wondering what do we do 2 months deadline ahead, you have something you can constantly show people. Like Zane is going to, have probably a lot of praise coming up here soon when we get to see all the work that him and you guys have put onto the website. So that has to be some pretty good motivation just with the snippets that people are saying, hey, this looks great, good job, keep going, we want to see more.
No, 100%, definitely. And I actually think from a project morale standpoint, it's actually really great because what happens is all the games I've made before, except for the very first ones when it was just me coding it, I always work with good people. I mean, so the good people, like talented artists, talented programmers, talented sound engineers, talented designers, and they all make my yes, I'm the name on the front of the box, but I couldn't have done it without them. But what happens is in the old way, you basically don't really get to appreciate a lot of the work. And like if you're a concept artist, your work probably never gets appreciated because you do these cool designs that everyone gets excited about, where they basically come into the game models, and by the time you see the final game, you're really just sort of commenting on the final game. And so what I feel like is in the process we're using, the open development process we have now, every member of our team basically gets acknowledgement, gets to be able to show their work to the general public. And in most cases, it's being received really well. And so yeah, that's also motivational. Zane, the posts on Zane's sort of design a work in progress from Friday were like there's so many people, oh my God, Zane, that's so great, that's amazing. The Hangar today on the video, there's a lot of really great positive posts, and so Farah Stefan, who is one of the key artists on that, and Jeff Uret, who was doing some of the programming on it. I mean, they get to read that and go, oh, you know what? I worked to get this thing out, and yeah, people really appreciate it. So I think it's a great motivational tool, and it's something good because what I feel like is a lot of time now the team, certainly for me, come into work and they sort of feel like what they're doing matters because they know that there's all these people out there that love what they're doing and can't wait to see new stuff. And that's so much more motivating than working for a publisher in the old model where you
well, you got to admit, booze and treats helps too.
Yeah, booze and
Booze.
No, but I mean, it's just, you feel like you're appreciated. You feel like you're appreciated every day, and who doesn't want to feel like they're appreciated every day? So I actually think on a morale standpoint, a team standpoint, it's good. I mean, we'll have to see because we've got a lot of things to do, and it's making games isn't easy. So there's always surprises and problems, and things are always more complicated than you thought. But I definitely feel the way the development feels to me is I feel like this is a great way to do development, and it's a great way to keep the team enthusiastic and connected to the mission at hand from day one, because that's always a problem. The problem is always to motivate your team for the end goal if it's 2 or 3 years down the road, because that's a goal that's so far away that a lot of people can't sort of even get their head around it. And by doing the process we're doing now, it's like I think what's going to happen is by the time you get to the end goal, you won't realize because you would have had so many little ones.
Yeah, you're just suddenly thinking, geez, how did we get here?
Yeah,
and that actually...
we ran a marathon. I didn't realize it because you were basically saying, okay, we're running a mile today, we're running a mile tomorrow, that kind of thing.
So that brings up another interesting question. You just said it yourself. Making games isn't easy, and a lot of companies out there are trying to use proven methods, and the word innovation is something that, oh God, let us hide under a rock with that. So why is Space Sim, and I'm probably going to get stabbed for this from the chat roll, the fact aside that space games have been your domain, why not try to make another, Chris Roberts Call of Duty or something like that, with something that's proven and financially stable, and with people saying, oh hey, a space sim, what are you doing? Even though now everybody's going, oh shit, Chris Roberts is funding a space game. Well, that of course it would work. Why again pick a space sim when you could, of course, go the easy route?
Well, I mean, I think the simple answer is I've never done anything in games or anything else that's been motivated by, okay, this thing's going to make the most money or this thing's going to sell the most units. So I basically, what I when I set out to do a project, so all my game projects, the same reason why I was off doing films is it's what I'm interested in. So I'm essentially building a game I want to play. My big motivation to build it was there just wasn't a game like this around. And I'm like, I don't understand why there isn't this game. I used to make these games. I used to like playing these games, and I
Where'd
don't.
they go?
Yeah, and I don't think I'm unusual. And I'm a PC gamer, and I've got this great computer, and I don't ever have anything that really pushes it to its limit. So, and that was the bet I made with Star Citizen. The bet, there's a lot of people who are saying, oh, I don't know, no one's been into space sims. Can you do all this stuff? And my bet was made, no, like there was a lot of people that like these games, and also I just think it's sci-fi, and like the dream of the space sim, the sort of aspirational fantasy of it. I think is common. I mean, sci-fi. The biggest movie of all time, Avatar, is a sci-fi movie. So I
Right.
don't. I just think that people haven't been particularly making this game, and maybe people stopped innovating and doing interesting things and focused on other things like military first-person shooters or whatever it was. But I definitely think if you deliver a good one, it will do well. Maybe it's not going to sell as much as Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty, but I think, especially the way we're set up, where we don't have a lot of overhead, we'll do quite well as long as we deliver a good game. And that's all I care about, because it's delivering a good game is what's important to me. So I just want to be able to make enough money to allow me to make a good game and to continue, in the case of Star Citizen, to add content to it.
I
Um,
believe I believe Demon Souls and Dark Souls, the guys over at From Software, went with the same approach. They're not as massive as Call of Duty or anyone, but they sure as hell gained momentum, and now they're making Dark Souls 2. And that's not a game for everyone, so the same approach, you would say?
well, yeah, I mean, look, I think I've had plenty of comments where I said how much I really like Demon Souls, and when
It's amazing.
I played it, it was a very sort of like culty niche game. I mean, you could hardly, it was hard to get a copy. And I'd read a lot of things where people were saying this is a really great game. And I was like, oh, I'm going to check it out it sort of reminded me of like a classic, like why I like games in the old days. Like they were hard. And when I achieved something, I felt real satisfaction. And I thought it was really smart about, I kind of like skill-based action as well as sort of a little bit of the leveling up. So I don't like where it's an automatic roll. I'm level 85. I will always beat level whatever 65 or something.
Right.
So I actually like the fact that you had to block a hit, or you had to use some skill. Plus you had to be smart, and you had to be careful, and it was hard to achieve things. And then I like their sort of shared, persistent world where people can leave notes for you, and occasionally they can come and help you beat a boss monster, or they could invade your world.
And
And
stab you in the back.
yeah, I really liked it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's an example of they focused on a core audience, and they didn't try to pander to this huge wide. Okay, we got to make it easy and social and da da da. And it kind of worked for them. So, and that's kind of that's my model on Star Citizen. I mean, I think that maybe a lot of people ultimately will like the game, but I'm not really concerned about trying to pander to the entire market. Like maybe if you're at a publisher, they'll be like, well, we need you to sell 5 million copies, so we think you may need to have these elements and these elements to do it, which you can see in some of the bigger studio games. Like
Right.
I love Deep Space, the original one, but you can sort of see it in the most recent one where it sort of feels like it's sort of moved away from the original survival horror.
Oh,
Dark
Dead Space.
Dead Space to Dead Space 3, which has a lot of sort of co-op and action, is much more of a shooter. And that's completely because they're saying, well, we need it to sell 5 million copies because that's what makes sense in the EA world. And my model would be like, no, don't worry about 5 million copies. If we sell 1 million or 2 million, great, that's great, because that's what the original Dead Space did. I think we can do that because we're a small company, and like I said, we don't have a lot of overhead to have to support.
Well, given that the Star Citizen community has already taken it up and, people are continuing to pour in, is it your intent to kind of spearhead a new generation since, the current model and publisher is, the general whole of it is something that us gamers and people in general are starting to view going, what the hell is going on here? Are you trying to, be the new generation? I don't know. I'm trying to think of the proper word here. The catalyst, so to speak, for a new generation. There we go.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say per se. I mean, like the way I look at it is that, I mean, I don't think the big blockbuster Call of Duty style games are going away. They're going to exist. They're going to sell their 25 million copies.
Well, they're not bad either, but they're
Yeah,
not for everyone.
and they definitely are. It's just I think there's a hole in the marketplace, which is kind of what I think something like Star Citizen's delivering. And I think that if it's done well, and I think there's a few other people doing the same kind of thing, it will be a very fun and empowering thing for real gamers that they love what they're playing, they love the genres they're playing, and they want to be involved in it because the thing that besides the fact that you're bringing you're helping bring back say a genre that you really loved in the backing Star Citizen, you're getting to sort of participate and see and have your voice be heard in a process that like normally you would never do. I mean, it's not that every one single opinion or idea gets heard, but it's a voice, and we read all the forums and we listen and we basically have a pretty good, I think, vibe on kind of what people want and what they don't want, and that definitely influences some of the direction we take. And typically you would just never be able to do that on a traditional big publisher game because that would it would be built in secret and then it would be announced at E3 and then it would be on the store shelves and then you could give your feedback which would come out in reviews and user comments and maybe that would affect the sequel. But here it's sort of like you're plugged in live and you're seeing it in process and you're getting your voice heard. And so I think as a gamer it's pretty empowering. I actually go out and back other people's games for that reason. I think it's empowering to say yay or nay and not have someone dictate to me what game I'm going to get. And so I think if there will definitely, I think, be a thriving sort of more crowd-funded development scene that will coexist with the big event game development scenes that sort of the Call of Duties, the Grand Theft Autos, and I think they're both viable. And I'm really enjoying the process that's happening here because it feels alive. It feels like every day is things move and change and they're vibrant and that's cool. So I wouldn't necessarily. So I'm not saying that I'm a trailblazer as far as it, but I am enjoying it, and I think that other people will do it, and it's a two-way street. I think it's good for the gamers on their side, and it's good for the developers. And I can tell you, everyone that works on the team here is so much. They'd much rather get comments from the community on their work than from a publishing executive.
Fair enough. Although I will have to make a comment with Zane's Photoshop forum post with you. You sure do look like a trailblazer in some of those.
Those ones are very cool.
Shout out to Zane, man.
I don't think I've ever looked that badass in my life.
Yeah, that was well done. So here's a flip side to what you said. Obviously, and I really respect you more with what you've said. You're not trying to go for money. But how do you plan to attain maximum exposure with those who say, are console gamers, or maybe are in my position or something else where we don't exactly have the biggest PC or something, aside from telling maybe get them a job? How do you appeal to those people? How do you just say, hey, you should come check out Star Citizen or something like that? Because there are people out there who don't have gaming PCs.
Yeah, no. Well, I think the way I'm approaching it is I'm gonna concentrate on making a really good game for my core audience.
Okay.
And then I'm going to hopefully the game's good enough that starts to speak for itself, and of course the community itself. I mean, because it's not just what we the press we do. I mean, we have over 100,000 basically evangelists for the game, right? Because everyone's backed it and everyone's actively trying to get other people in, and that's I think to be honest with you, in the future, I think that kind of I don't know what to call it, marketing or whatever, but I think that is one of the ways that you will sort of grow and gather more players in as you go. People go, oh, you're having fun doing this? This is really cool, and do that. So there's that way. And then I think that down the road, just the nature of technology becoming cheaper and more powerful, by the time we're out and we've satisfied the core gamers and hopefully we're continuing on, because I sort of view Star Citizen as something that hopefully will go for a long time, like EVE Online's gone for a long time. Then I think that there will be situations where the hardware then is going to be cheaper and more powerful. So you will be able to play Star Citizen and get the experience on hardware that maybe now $1,500. In a few years' time, maybe only $500. So we'll sort of see how that goes. But right now, I'm really just sort of focused on my core audience, which I think is bigger than people suspect, and then going from there.
I don't think you have to worry. That's just, looking at all the pledgers and even everything every day, every day you wake up and look at your pledge, drive, you constantly have people pledging, and I really
Yeah,
don't think you'd have to be worried.
I'm amazed. I mean, I refresh, whatever 3 in the morning, and so it's somewhere, some other time, somewhere else, and there's people backing it, and they're, and yes, we do have like articles and press, but not all the time. So it definitely has to be people going, hey, I'm really doing, I'm having fun. This is cool. You should check it out. So, oh, this looks great. I'll join. Oh yeah, that's worth $30 or whatever it would be. And that's got to be 100% word of mouth driven, which is really fantastic.
Very clever. So, when you guys actually get a moment to sit down and play the game yourself, like, this is your baby, your vision, your game, but you have, Eric, everybody over there working, you're working hard at it. Um, when you're all said and done, how do you actually sit down and enjoy a game that you yourself had the idea sprang forth from? That's the magician knowing the trick, essentially.
Uh, well, you know what? I think this will probably be the game that will be the best for that, because we're basically designing the game as much more of a sandbox and a lot of procedural stuff, and we're really putting a lot of the drama and the content sort of in the hands of the players. So, the reason why, like, as a game creator, you play your own game and it's not maybe so great for you compared to someone else is that you already know what's happening and you know what's going on. But in Star Citizen, uh, in this universe, to be honest with you, I don't know what's going to happen. And I think part of the fun is going to be seeing what evolves. We're going to give tools for people. And I'm just really curious to see kind of like what alliances, factions, what people fight over, what they do, what they get up to. And I'm very confident that I'm going to be completely like floored and surprised by what people do. Like, you just wouldn't expect it. So I think there'll be a lot of emergent behavior coming from it. And so I'm actually really looking forward to getting it all up and running and seeing what comes out of it and playing in it. And I think it will be a discovery for me in a way that maybe it wouldn't have been if I was playing a Wing Commander or one of my other games that was a linear single player game.
Yeah, a lot of people have, even on the chat roll or the forums, if you look at them, have made parallels to Eve. Some of them, excitedly, others shunningly because they don't want to talk about that game. But would you say that's kind of it's a commendable route to go? I really respect what Eve has done, and it's really fun to go in there knowing that the fans drive the game. And, would that be a good parallel to use for somebody if you were to say, hey, this is what Star Citizen is like, or sort of?
Well, I mean, I think in so much that Eve is sort of community driven in terms of a lot of the drama and conflict. Yes, in terms of playstyle, it's not at all.
Oh no.
Like even that's and for me that's it's hard for me. I've tried a few times to play Eve and get into Eve, but I sort of find it a little too standoffish, cerebral for me to really sort of get myself into, because I'm a big sort of immersion person, and being in there and feeling like I'm in the cockpit and walking around the corridors and
Eve is a game where you can alt tab and light a cigar and walk away. It plays itself sometimes.
well, so the immediacy, the rawness of what I think I'm trying to do with Dustin isn't a need, but in terms of sort of the long term thinking and the sandbox and the community driven aspects of it, yes, and they've done a really great job. I mean, it's really impressive that it's 10 years later and they've got a bigger audience than they've ever had, and it's an incredibly dedicated audience. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, they've probably, if you want to sort of look at a sort of diehard, faithful community, I would say Eve was probably one of your biggest examples of it, and so they've done some really great stuff. So, I think Star Citizen will give you a different flavor, but we definitely want to be player driven.
So maybe a better note would be to use, and you're going to have to forgive me because I've played a very few of your games, mostly due to me being a young kid. Um, I got to play Privateer recently, and a lot of my buddy was constantly saying, like, think of this, but online, like, movie narrator voice. He was trying to do that. So
Right.
maybe use that as a proper example for somebody who's just maybe coming into Star Citizen for the first time.
Yeah.
Privateer, but
Well, no,
online.
yeah. Well, no, it definitely is. I mean, we actually had there was a Privateer Online that was shelved a long time ago back at Origin that was going to happen after Ultima Online, but it's been a goal. I mean, as that my when I built Privateer, the idea of having an open universe you could adventure around was great, but I never felt like we fully fleshed it out. And obviously, being able to play with other players just sort of adds to the sense of a big universe. And so like I said, I'm kind of looking forward to just flying around. I mean, I'm gonna have to have a slightly more powerful ship because everyone's gonna probably try and shoot me down. But
Just extra shields, maybe a little invulnerability here or there.
yeah, well,
Close draw.
I may have a sort of more anonymous ship, but yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm kind of curious because it's just always fun to see things and see things unfold.
Actually, that's one other thing I was curious about. This is more game-wise. I've been asking industry things. Um, with the in-game physics, you guys mentioned you wanted to do, at least as realistic as possible. If it was fully realistic in space, well, God, that would suck. There would be people flying left, right, and center. Do you guys plan to use Newtonian physics, or, how exactly do you plan to
Yeah,
approach that?
we use full like Newtonian rigid body physics. I mean, it's in the whole system. I mean, there's a pretty powerful physics system in CryEngine.
Yeah, yeah.
We have a whole level of stuff on top of it for the spaceship handling and stuff like that. So it's a pretty decent physics simulation, and when the ships uh, rotate, change their orientation, change the velocity, it's all done physically correct. And if you have a bigger, heavier ship with more mass, it's going to have like a higher, moment of inertia, and therefore be sort of slower to move and respond.
It'll feel like a bag of worms in space.
Yeah, well, and it will be. So, like having cargo on board will affect your performance envelope. The different items you've outfitted your ship with will affect its performance envelope. So, yeah, there's a whole bunch of things like that.
Could you be heavy enough, perhaps, to say establish an orbit around a orbital body, or maybe even suffer from a gravity well?
No, I don't necessarily think that heavy. You got to get pretty heavy for that. But no, we wouldn't be that. I mean, even the Bengal carrier, I don't think will be big enough to create its own gravity that you'll find that gravity that you would be able to notice. Let's say in your spaceship.
Well, I was saying you orbit other things. If you got heavy enough to have people orbit you, I think you'd be flying a Death Star.
Yeah.
That's no moon. Well, I again would like to thank you very much for taking the opportunity to talk. Again, this is deeply appreciated. You're very busy and you're working hard, and the fact that it was Zane and Shigo who had mentioned and asked if you'd be able to talk to me. So a shout out to them and thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I did. Well, I did a backer call with Shago, and she said, "Will you go on, Dr. Hawk's show?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, that'd be great. Not a problem at all. I'd be more than happy to." I mean, you guys are all, you're the, I wouldn't be sitting here in this office if it wasn't for you and a whole bunch of other people. So, trust me, I've got more than enough time for all of you. More than happy to sit here and do interviews and stuff.
Well, everybody, this has been Chris Roberts interviewing Dr. Hawk. I'd like to thank you again, Chris Roberts, and I wish you guys all to take care and fly safe.
Okay, all right, awesome. Well, thanks for all you guys listening, and thanks for asking some great questions, Dr. Hawk.
All right. Take care, guys.
Okay, later.